Oh, what did I do? Almost made it disappear.
Okay, Chair, you're all set. We're now streaming live.
Okay, I guess I can call the meeting to order. Remind everyone the film that we're being live streamed, and a recording of the meeting will be archived on the town of Grimsby's website following the meeting. Next, disclosure of pecuniary interest. Does anyone want to disclose any of that interest on any of the items we're talking about tonight? Fine, we move ahead. Acceptance of the agenda. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda and a seconder? Bruce, and just I have to write this down. Just a minute. Bruce Minion, and who seconded that, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Phil. All in favor? Good, thank you. One. The reports. Now here, this is the plan. I'll just give a little bit. The request was that we get some the members of the committee get some understanding of the procedural requirements to move ahead on any items. We've been together in various scenarios for what I guess a couple of years almost, and we have a list of items. And I think it's time we understood what it takes to move on each of them, because they're not all the same. So in making that request, and from Parks and Rec and Public Works, I gave 4 examples. The Trails Master Plan, which is obvious, that's one that's out there, the town has initiated, but I'm looking for Sarah to give us some sense of our role. Do we take some individuals to get involved? Specifically, on we go. So we'll address Trails Master Plan that way, as along with an update. So we can pull these things together, update and our role. Walking routes update. That's one we had started when we were the previous, in the beginning, we had, and I'll give a little background to that. Bruce and I worked on it, and I'll give a little, just a reminder about what the process was to be. COVID stopped all that. So, and how do we best move ahead? What was next on that? Oh, the bike friendly designation. We had just got going, and that's a little different situation. This is one that the town wants to get that designation back. We are interested in supporting getting that designation back. So how do we, I know who was working on it and whether those folks are still interested in carrying on, and then how do we best move ahead? The issue there is tying in with the right people in the town and accessing data and making sure that we can complete the requirements of the process to make the bike friendly people happy enough to give us a designation. And some of that I believe involves promise to do things in the future, and they're the kinds of things you want to make sure that we the town or some combination can deliver on that. So that's a separate type of project. And then the fourth one is a little different. It's the disc golf. We specifically have it on our priorities list. Remember the priorities list we put together, but it fits nicely under one of the categories to suggest and promote amenities that enhance and encourage outdoor activity. So that's a little different, and we'll need some guidance on how one moves ahead of that. It's assuming the committee itself deems that worthwhile to move ahead on. And I saw it as being a little different because there's some uncertainty about town support. There's an awful lot more about getting public support for that kind of thing. So there are 4 different types of projects, and assuming we collectively are willing to work on those, the next question is how. Is everybody okay with that? Is that kind of outline, is that as important to you as it is to me? Okay.
Perfect.
Seeing no opposition, let's move on. The first was Trails Master Plan, and Sarah, we look for an update and something specific of how you'd like us to move ahead. what we can do for you or the town, if you will.
Good evening, everyone. Chair, if you're okay, I'm just going to mention one other part that you and I did have a conversation about as well, was just sort of the decorum, I guess, in our meetings. Is in speaking with Chair Paul, he indicated that he was comfortable to move forward as well without through the chair and a lot of the formality, and keeping it a little less formal and just sort of having a little bit more open dialogue. Hopefully I'm speaking properly for you, Paul, here. So I think just,
you are, yeah.
Flowing along, we want to keep the group comfortable and chatting back and forth, and of course being respectful and taking turns and all those good things, but not needing to worry about some of maybe the formalities of the terms and all of that. So I think if everybody's comfortable with that, we can move forward with that as well. And
thanks for bringing that up. Yes.
Yeah, my pleasure. The other point I just wanted to raise too is we did have a conversation as well about what kinds of things require council approval and what sorts of things we can move forward with as a committee. Yes. And sometimes the lines aren't super clear, and I need support from others as well to understand it. But generally, where it is, you know, if we're talking about doing work that we can sort of manage well within our resources, or we're doing as a committee, we can proceed with that. But if we do start to dive into certain topics that might require a significant amount of staff resource time, might have some significant operational impacts ongoing, or other sorts of things that might impact the broader corporation in a larger way, those are the types of things that often do require council endorsement in order to proceed. So just that is sort of, you know, we do have to sort of straddle those two pieces, and if we're not sure, we'll have a conversation about it. We have a counselor here and a clerk here and others as well, and we'll sort of collaboratively do our best to determine the right fit. But just, I know that questions come up, and I hope that's maybe a bit helpful to just bear in mind that we're always thinking on our end as well as staff, what does require council approval and what can we proceed with as a group as well. So stuff like participating in events, or, you know, simple activities, those types of things we could do. Something like disc golf, if we were looking at potentially doing a little bit of outreach with the community for interest, which quite possibly we would do. There might be, or something else that would have a larger operational impact if there was significant costs with disc golf, which there isn't, but if there was, then those are the types of things we would definitely want council to support, that staff are also investing their resources into that work. So I hope that's helpful, just to kind of give you a sense of why sometimes it comes up and sometimes it doesn't.
Sarah, if I can just jump in on that is helpful, and I guess as we don't necessarily need the answer, it's how to best reach out to council, to a written report, a personal presentation, that kind of thing. And I guess, is that sort of each case on its own as well?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
So, well, what can happen is a report can be put forward, and then so when the minutes of this committee meeting get completed, the minutes go to council and council approves the minutes. Right. If there's something in those minutes that they do feel needs endorsement or needs sort of particular attention that council be aware of, it actually gets pulled out as an endorsement package piece. And Peter, please, if I am missing anything or not stating it right, do cut in. And he has his hand up, so maybe he wants. Do you want to speak to this, Peter?
I was just going to bring up the procedure bylaw if it's helpful. I'll just do it quickly. I have it here. And it goes exactly to what you were saying, Sarah. So in this section 3.6, it just states that advisory committees will provide essentially recommendations through their meeting minutes, and they're to be received by council. However, if there's recommendations in there that require council endorsement, they're put under a separate heading, which we refer to as the council endorsement package, that are received at committee of the whole. So we try to identify when there are specific recommendations included in the meeting minutes.
Okay. Because so far the minutes that are being generated under this new process are pretty skinny. I mean, there's no detail on anything we've talked about. So we would have to contemplate that if we were talking about something that we then wanted council to pay attention to. Is that, and those words have to get into the minutes.
Yeah, the minutes are generally not are not full of a ton of detail. That's pretty standard practice, I think, in municipal environment.
Right.
But, you know, if we were getting into something more specific that we wanted council to have more information about, or, you know, we can, there is options in terms of reports and other formats where we can make sure that additional content is there, particularly if it's relevant to them understanding what the committee is requesting to do.
Thank you. Everybody okay on that? Yeah. Good.
I do
Back
think
to
you have a hand up there, Chair.
Is there a hand up?
Yeah, Jimmy.
Jimmy? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jimmy. Yep.
So can we use it like a theoretical example of like the Frisbee golf, so something that wouldn't require endorsement versus something that would require endorsement, so that I actually like understand a little bit better what that would mean in practice? So if we say we want a disc golf course, I'm assuming that would mean not endorsement, but like what would be an example of something that would?
So the disc golf could, depending on what we want to do for community consultation, we would want to make sure council is aware of what we're doing. An example of we wouldn't is we've talked a little bit about promoting cycling in the community, or, you know, for the wrist slap bracelets that we have, you know, going out and promoting, you know, if we were talking about, you know, safe cycling, or going to the farmers market or doing a pop-up event, or those types of activities. If that's something that this committee is looking at doing, that would not require council's approval. If you're providing advice and feedback on a subject matter, that would not necessarily, most likely would not require endorsement. So it's, again, it's more getting into stuff where we're changing maybe or influencing operational or directional decisions for the town.
So if I have, just to be clear, back to Jimmy, I think what we're hearing is disc golf would require an endorsement as opposed to wouldn't. The council would need to accept the concept before we moved ahead with that.
I see Councillor Richie wants to speak, so I'll just turn over to him. But generally, for that one, I would suggest potentially yes, because I do think we would want to do some outreach with the community, and they should just be aware of where it's coming from and who's requesting it. So I would suggest in that scenario we would, because there is some follow-up pieces we would want to do.
Okay.
Councillor Richie, I think wanted to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted also to reiterate that as a member of this committee, that you know, any report or anything that you might want to be said in front of council, I take that as as an additional role and responsibility. Yes, you could put the words into the minutes. If it's something like disc golf, because we'd be using a part of some park or green space on a permanent basis, more or less, for a disc golf, that may have to go to council for the community feedback and so forth. You might want that endorsement, but anything that you feel that you might want said, I am always open to. I have an opportunity that if you write something or if it comes from the committee, that I'm there to help represent this committee. So I'll always be there to support you guys. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Great. Okay, well, I think we're sort of touching the bases we're hoping to touch in this, but I'll ask if we can from now, we'll just move ahead through each item and address the specifics when we get to them. So we'll stay with your Trails Master Plan for now. Sarah, please.
Sure. So update on that is we are trudging along. Had some initial meetings with a consultant. We're really excited about it. They seem great and some really good initial collaboration. So we're excited about that work. I actually have a meeting again with them tomorrow. And what they're doing right now is currently data collection, right? Is so gathering some, you know, studies, some mapping, some various pieces of what does exist, so they can sort of survey the scene a little bit. And what we will be doing shortly is launching into some initial stakeholder outreach engagement, which most definitely we would like all of you to be participating in. In terms of how to participate, there might be a lot of it will be me sending it out to you as a group. There might be some opportunities to attend in a group setting. We're still sort of sorting that out. There'll be some surveys. There'll be a variety of different ways that you can share your feedback on that. And I would also hope that you would extend it to your networks as well. For people who are involved in areas that certainly touch into trails, I would hope that when you do get the links and information for this surveys or opportunities to engage, that if you could help spread the word as best as possible, again, with people who are particularly maybe interested in these areas or not, just generally in the community, the more people that contribute, the better. One thing, I'm just going to share my screen. Why don't I see it? I don't see where the share screen is.
Maybe at the bottom of your screen, it's the green button.
Oh, geez, sorry. I think I'm so used to Teams. I can't find it. Where we are. Thank you, Peter. So hopefully you can see this. I'll just try to zoom it in a bit more. Just did want to get a little bit of feedback from you. We've been trying to collect a list of some of the agencies and organizations that we do want to extend outreach to. So just going to run through them with you. If you think of a few others now, or even you know, in the next week or two, do send them to me, because we want to try to reach, get this out to as many groups that would be interested in participating. So for agencies and municipalities, you can see we have Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, Hamilton Conservation Authority, the Waterfront Regeneration Trust Waterfront Trail Group, Bruce Trail, Niagara Escarpment Commission, surrounding municipalities, Niagara Region, utility companies, and public health. For advisory committees, we primarily listed this one, recognizing it's the one with the most impact. There will be some others that we extend to as well, such as Grimsby Green, and joint accessibility and some of the other ones, but the primary one will be working with this group here. And then in terms of interest groups, we had Ontario Green Conservation Group, Carolinian Canada, we thought we'd connect to, Greenbelt Foundation, Ontario by Bike, the library, the Art Gallery Museum, our service clubs, and it says Hamilton Field Naturalists, which is not correct, it should say Hamilton Naturalists Club. So those are some of the groups we've identified that we thought might be interested to provide input into this. And I can share this list with people afterwards as well. But if you do think of others, or if there's ones that immediately come to mind that you don't think we've captured, please do let me know, because I'd like to add them to that list.
One jumps out is any group that's got a focus on accessibility. Now, I'm sure it's built in there, but I just didn't see the name of a group.
Yeah. And one other one I might add as well, actually, is also our historical societies, because I know they have been involved in walks in different phases as well. So they might actually also be a group of interest.
Yes, great.
Anything else that jumps out at anybody that you're affiliated to or aware of that you think we should consider adding?
Yeah, Sarah, we originally talked 2 years ago about having the schools involved.
Good point. Great point. I will see how the consultant thinks maybe is the best way to approach that, but that's a great point to make sure we're including schools.
Community living strikes me as a organization that Bruce mentioned there for accessibility.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. Good one. Okay, hearing no more. If something does pop into your mind, please do send that along, and we will make sure that we connect them into that outreach as well. So hopefully by next meeting we have a further update, and I hope our some of our initial engagement pieces are already even underway. So we'll look
great. Good. Anne, I see your hand up there.
Yeah, I have a question for Sarah. In the Trails Master Plan, are these trails going to be accessible for bikes?
Some probably will, some may be intended for bikes, some may not. So I would say bikes to certainly be included in the discussion. It is focusing on recreational trails. It could be a bit of a mix.
Because if we're going to go for the bike-friendly community, that's definitely something that we could put into the application. You know, if we could get some information about the Trails Master Plan and be able to say these trails will be part of our community's bicycle trails, that would be a real plus. Is it something that's being considered, which ones will be for bikes or bike accessible?
We haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure it will get looked at. But great point that it could connect into. One thing to really just highlight as well with this is it is a recreational trails master plan. So it is not an on-road, it does not cover on-road biking. The intention would be that at a later date, I think if work is done on roads and complete streets, and Michael or Marvin might want to comment to this if there's questions about it, that the on-road cycling piece would be addressed further then. So that is not part of this scope, just so everybody's
great.
But
Thank you.
I do think that part of that application for community biking having off-road trails is a really important part of it.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ann. Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure I made the distinction of on-road and off-road,
Okay.
just in case. Absolutely, I totally agree.
Thank you. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, any other questions about the plan? I think more will unfold as we get going, but yeah.
Bruce McKenzie, I see.
Thanks, Chair Paul. Sarah, you mentioned about the trail master plan not including bicycling on roadways, and I recognize that. Can someone remind me whether we talked about a bicycle master plan for Grimsby, and I'm referring to roads. I think there was some discussion in the past, but I just can't remember clearly as to where that subject might be at this time.
So on that piece, I may defer to Marvin or Michael on that one, if they have any input for that.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, good question, Bruce. So I'm not aware, and I'm going to reach out to Michael to chime in here too when I'm
recording
finished,
in progress.
There's no, I don't believe there's any master plan right now for the town in terms of biking facilities. Whenever a reconstruction is made, there's consideration for obviously for on-road biking. But I can share that the intent next year is to do a master transportation plan for the town. And as part of that, I would certainly anticipate that being a component of the plan. So I don't know, Michael, if you have any maybe more history or comments on kind of a town-wide master plan for biking.
Yeah, sure, Marvin. So we don't have a specific bicycle master plan, but it is like you said, once we dive into a full transportation master plan, the area of cycling and active transportation will be one of the main components of that. So it'll be looked at through that study and not on its own.
Great, thanks, Michael. Does that help, Bruce?
Yeah, yes, it certainly does. And thank you, Chair Paul. I have a note for new business or business from the last meeting, but I'll save that for later in relation to bikes and roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any more questions for Sarah?
Not a question there, Chair. I just wanted to add about the bike master plan. I believe that when we were discussing it, that we were looking to get our bike friendly status back first. And if we're able to accomplish the bike friendly status, and that's where we're also going to look at, or I think it's part of a component with that as well. So I think that's where the conversation came up, and that we were looking at doing what we need to do to get our friendly bike status back. And then we could use that as a tool to expand for the future. I don't know if that's completely correct, but that's where I thought that's what we were looking at, the bike friendly status.
Good. Any more comments on that? Anne?
Yeah, I think the bike master plan and the safe bike status have to go hand in hand. I think when you apply for the safe bike status, you have to be able to at least mention some kind of a bike master plan in the works or being developed. That would help get the status. You know, I think to say that we're not going to do the master plan till we get the status is kind of putting the horse before the cart. I think we need to have some kind of a plan in order to qualify for the status, from what I've read anyway. What do you think, Sarah? Does that sound reasonable?
I don't think we have to have an existing plan in place to meet a certain status, certain level of bike friendly, because there are different categories. Certainly advancing work with master plans and different studies that are improving the bike friendliness in the community would advance you through those levels. But I don't know that it's a requirement just to be bike friendly, because we did have the bronze level and we don't have a plan. So there must be a way to do it. I do think it would just be something that the committee would value as you sort of move through the pieces of that plan, if that makes sense.
If I can jump in, I think I recall that from before. If you can show some intent to move on issues, the key is you have to mean it. And sometimes people can tend to say intent a little too easily. I think in this case, the challenge would be to be quite comfortable that was a correct statement, but it wasn't essential. Great. Bruce Mannion.
Because we had the status before, in that status, it required you to show things that you were going to accomplish in the future.
Yep.
So would we have to show some of these things that we had said in the first study that we've accomplished? Anything?
Chair, I wonder, would you be comfortable if we, and unless Peter has an objection to this, maybe we just discuss bike friendly right now since we're kind of there. We're switching the order slightly, but maybe we just continue this conversation and then touch on walking routes after.
The flow is nice. Yeah, let's.
Is that okay? Because I can answer
everybody
the
else
question.
okay with it? Since we're here.
The questions I'm answering was kind of the refresher I was going to provide. So we're just sort of naturally morphing there. So I don't see Peter's hands jumping up and down. So I'm assuming we're okay. Do that.
I think that's a good thing.
So we can do that. So the way things got left is the way it works with the bike friendly status is initially you submit this application and it's quite a lengthy, complicated application. Probably Paul recalls it as I believe he was involved in, and Bruce Mannion likely as well. And it does entail quite a number of, it is quite lengthy, a lot of statistics, a lot of data. And what happens is once you get the status, so it's not like you get the status and you're done forever. Really the intention of the bike friendly program isn't to give you awards and plaques and put things on walls. It's to encourage you to continually be trying to improve and advance the bike friendliness in your community. So every 5 years, you do have to reapply, you do have to renew. And the hope is as well, you might strive for new categories. So you start with bronze and hopefully you would strive towards silver and gold. And again, it's not so much about, you know, the badge that you might get to put on a wall somewhere. It's really more about these ideas and these pieces you're working towards are making your community more bike friendly. So we did not have our renewal met in 2017. And it was largely because some of the things I think that we were intended to have been done either didn't get completed or maybe just weren't quite as was stated. And at that time as well, we didn't have this committee started and the independent active Grimsby group or active transportation group had folded. So what they said to us when we last talked to them, and it was a bit of time and it was pre-COVID, but I would understand it to still exist, is to re-achieve that status. It's really just showing that as a corporation and as a community, we are advancing work towards being more bike friendly. So they did give 4 categories that they suggested we do work in. And they had said that if we completed 1 item in each category, they felt that that would suffice to return us to a bronze status. And hoping again, that even over that next 5 years that we are continuing to advance the work of bike friendly and stuff like master plans, educational awareness, trails work, signage, you know, all those types of things, right, would go towards showing that we are advancing efforts to be bike friendly. Does that help with a bit of a description? And what I was going to do, if it's agreeable to the group, is take a few minutes and just go over what some of the feedback and suggested areas of work that they provided to us. So we could decide, is it something we want to do? We don't have to do their pieces necessarily, but they suggested some good ones to give us a sense of what are they suggesting we do to advance the work of being bike friendly.
Great.
Sorry,
Yeah.
David, I did see your hand up, and if I kept talking, feel free to jump in.
No, actually, I was scratching my head, but I think it's a great idea to move ahead. And with what you're saying, yeah, if you can give us that, that would help.
Okay.
Everybody else okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
So, can everybody see that?
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Now, do you see it says engineering?
Yes.
Okay. So this was the first bucket they provided. I did highlight the ones that I thought might be the easiest for us to achieve. So the first thing they said was availability of bike parking in Grimsby is unknown, an easy knowledge gap to fill, which is correct. And I do think we've talked about this as a group before. So one of the things they suggested was undertaking a bike parking inventory. And this is actually something we could also weave into our GIS mapping and even share with the community. I can tell you a little bit of this work has been initiated by our staff in some of our parks, but it would be a matter of going out to other areas and helping us identify where there's bike parking. So that might be one that we could do fairly easily, and we could work as a group to make sure we've mapped them all. And then also as a group, look at it and identify where do we think there's gaps, or maybe we would want more bike parking. Sure that town staff keep up to date with most current design guidelines and programs to support cycling by offering specific training. This probably exists. Michael, you might even have a comment on that in terms of the OTM Book 18, but that's something we could do. It'd be a little bit more staff than it would be this group. They suggested to develop a plan for a system of bicycle boulevards or neighborhood greenways utilizing quiet neighborhood streets that create an attractive, convenient, and comfortable cycling environment welcoming to cyclists. So, you know, even, and this isn't maybe quite this example, but another example might be the work that I know Councillor Richie was advocating for as well, is that sidewalk that also is pedestrian and bike friendly. That might be just one other example that we can show of advocating for better pathways that can be used. I guess it's not really cycling necessarily, but it might, that would be those types of things, I think, is what they'd be looking at. In education, they did talk a bit about educating schools in terms of cycling and transportation, and also just doing general education. So, you know, we could do a little pop-up tent has been talked about, you know, at the farmer's market or another event or activity where we do share cycling information. Also, you know, another thing we could do is we could work as a team to find certain resources we might want to share on our website that share about how to safely bike out in your community. So that might be a great one that this group could work on that we could achieve quite easily. This is another sort of advocating, I think, awareness of sharing the road. Again, that would be another piece we could do, a bit of social media campaigning. We could put content on our website. These types of things are some of the ideas that they're sharing of things we can do relatively easily as we're sort of getting underway again. This is it's a lot, I'll send this to you, but it's a lot of the same idea of just different ways to engage and reach out to the community about how to, you know, safely bike, but also as a motorist, how to be respectful of bicyclists as well. So, you know, if there was a group that wanted to take away some ideas as to what do we think could be most impactful to do some work along those lines, I think that would be a really good win for the community. Under encouragement, it's a little bit simpler. They said June is Bike Month in Ontario. That might be something we want to flag for next year if we do want to do some cycling work, to pay attention to that day. So again, encouraging, this was a little bit more of the idea of encouraging biking. So, you know, maybe, you know, promoting, you know, ride your bike to work day, or even ride your bike to school, that sort of idea. Another piece that I wanted to touch on here, and I was going to mention it later on, but I think it fits here, is, you know, certainly during COVID-19, we have seen an increase in people who are biking and who are walking. And it's great. It's great to see that, you know, and is there a way maybe as a committee where we can find ways to continue to promote that, to continue to encourage that that stays the case, that maybe you are biking and walking more in the evenings with your family or just on your own. But certainly we do find we're seeing much more of that going on. So is there a way that we can sort of continue that momentum through some messaging or some encouragement or other activities or ideas surrounding that? Bike rodeos, those type of ideas. I actually talked to somebody the other day about, we used to do a bike rodeo, bringing that type of an idea back, maybe in a partnership with another organization could certainly be something we could look at. We kind of win in this section already because at the time of this report, Grimsby Active Transportation Group had folded, but we can at least now say that we have this group. So that's a bit of a win in that category for us as well, that we can certainly send to the bike share team. The last section is a little bit trickier. It gets into enforcement, and it does touch in a little bit more with Niagara Regional Police and different pieces with that. And that might be something that staff can help a little bit too. And maybe we could even lean on Michael just in terms of roadways as well, in terms of what we can do in terms of enforcement. So they talked about reach out to members of law enforcement and network with them, encouraging them to be proactive with sharing any collision data, a bunch of different things that they've suggested in here. And they give a few examples as to what others have done as well. So I'll send this document directly to all of you, but that just gives you a sense of those are the things they're suggesting we're due. So they're not super difficult to tackle. We don't have to do the full application again, or at least we didn't last we spoke to them, unless that's changed. And then we could just sort of continue on from there and try and, do one or two things annually so that we continue to move forward with bike friendly. Is that helpful?
That's very helpful. And I wouldn't mind just spinning off that now to confirm, because that looks like something that we can get underway now, even with some COVID limitations. But I just want to confirm, I think Anne, Jimmy, and Dave had agreed to be the initial, in the sense, subcommittee. We didn't use that term, but subgroup that was going to focus on it, because we all can't do the same thing at the same time. Are you three folks still interested in carrying on with that after what you've heard? Jimmy's up, Anne's up. How you doing, Dave?
Yeah.
That work?
I just, I had a couple of comments to make. One is I was wondering if we could see the previous application so that we have something to build on. So we're, instead of starting from scratch in terms of developing an application to get the status back, maybe if we could see what was submitted last time, that could be helpful. And I had one other comment, which is just a personal one of mine. I have been cycling on Lake Street on the bike lanes there, and there's cars parked in the bike lanes on Lake Street every day. And I was wondering if there's something that could be done about that.
Sure. So to answer your question, Jay, so just for clarification, we do not have to reapply. So I can certainly share the application with you, but if the concern is having to dive back into a lengthy application, my understanding is we don't have to do the whole reapplication. We have to show that we've done those pieces in those categories. So I could definitely share it to you, but just know that you don't have to do it, because the application is, it was quite a bit of work, and I don't want you to see that and go, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll dig it up and share it, but as last it stood, we don't have to go through that all again.
Okay, I appreciate that.
In terms of the Lake Street, I can certainly follow up and share that with the team. Is there a particular area on Lake Street, Dave?
It's out by Bell Harbor there. There's cars parked on the bike lane every day there. Jimmy's nodding his head. He's probably seen it too. Okay.
What I'll do is I'll share that with our bylaw team and ask them if they can pay some attention to it and do some education and the things that they do.
So on this issue, just to confirm, so the three folks are still willing to work, and then I think out of this, if we can get a contact or a commitment to get a contact with, I guess, Public Works on as a staff person to work through this, then we're off to the races in terms of being able to proceed. That we don't all need to be in here inventing how that project should roll out. The three folks and staff can get to a point. And then we can talk about it at a future meeting. Mm-hmm. Does that seem reasonable with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
I see Bruce's hand up. Bruce Mannion.
Yes, Sarah, I was just wondering what the highlighted writing in that report, is that a reply from the bicycle committee? And is that is it possible for us to have a copy of it so we could look it over and see ourselves what we could think about for working on it? Even not part of the three bicycle people, but just for interest and for anything we could think of that we could do ourselves.
Yes, I can certainly share it with all of you. The yellow highlight is mine, so you can ignore it. For those that are working with it, it was just the ones that struck me as sort of one of, some of the maybe simplest and most impactful to achieve. So the yellow really doesn't mean anything other than my own markings, which I will take off before I send it to you, but I will share it with all of you so that you all have it.
So that was a
And it
report
doesn't have
after
to be those things, right? Like they were just suggesting things. So you're no way tied to what they're suggesting. They're just giving you ideas. But you can make it your own ultimately.
But
Great.
but their ideas are usually good for the community, right?
Well, I think their ideas are based upon other applications and successes they're seeing in other municipalities. So they're certainly, coming from a good place that I think are valuable.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are we okay to move on that then? The three folks who have agreed to work on it can contact, do we have a name now or is that something forthcoming, a person to contact on staff?
I will confirm that for you, but Chair Paul, I do see Anne's hand up as well.
Okay, sorry, Anne.
I just want to get some clarification from Sarah. So we don't have to submit the complete application. We just have to add some things to some application that's already ongoing. Is that what you're saying?
As of the last time I talked to them, so we did not need to fill out the whole application. We needed to show progress in those areas.
Oh,
I will
okay.
to them and reconfirm and even establish that contact for the three of you as well. It's possible that's changed. It was a while ago, but that was the case when I had talked to them shortly before COVID started.
Okay, because that would be good to know. I looked at the application, it's 80 pages.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yes. So
It doesn't, it's not like 80 pages of a lot of work. Some of it's very simple. But there also is a deadline for this year's application, which is October 8th is the deadline. So would we have to fill in those missing gaps by October 8th if we want to get it? Otherwise, you have to wait till next April.
Right, so they do 2 intakes a year, October and April. Achieving it all for October could be possible, but April might make more sense. Because it depends a little bit on the group that wants to work on it. Either is possible. Knowing we're already approaching the end of August, but again, that's
sometimes it's better to do a lot of work in a short time. So would you be the contact person to submit whatever's missing, or somebody in your department who we can connect with to sort of discuss what we're going to add? Like, we need to know what we need to add to that, right?
Absolutely. We'll help facilitate it for sure. We'll work with you.
Give us a contact person or with you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It may vary. There might be certain, if you're talking a little bit about more community events and submitting the plan, that might be one staff person. If the subject is a little bit more on some specific road pieces, that might be a little bit more in the purview of Public Works or even Michael with transportation. So you might get a little bit of a mix of on our team, just depending on what expertise makes most sense.
Okay, well, just as long as we have the right people to talk to go forward. Doesn't sound like it should take too long. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think we got one project underway. That's good. Any more questions for Sarah on that one?
Yeah.
Great.
See Marvin's hand up as.
Oh, I didn't. Sorry. Thank you. Better.
No worries. Thanks. Yeah, so I was just going to add in terms of a Public Works contact, I think Michael Palumbo, who's on the meeting with us, he's our area expert. So I think he would be the best candidate for Public Works to be part of the team with Sarah and her team.
Great. Thank you. That's good. Everybody clear on that? That's a good thing. Well, we've hit master.
If I may, one more thing, Chair Paul. I did. It was last year. I was at a workshop and somebody from the bike share group was there, and I was talking to them quite a bit. And they're quite passionate. They have lots of ideas, and I think they were even willing at one point to come to our committee meeting and talk a little bit about successes they've seen in other communities. And I thought it might be a great opportunity to hear from them and engage them. So I'm seeing some nods. So I will reach out to them and see if that is a possibility, especially virtually. It's far easier to attend, but maybe they would attend and just, talk to us a little bit more about some different ideas, either for this application or even down the road, just to maybe inspire some other ideas for us.
I think that would be great. Yeah, really, really helpful. You okay to move on to the next item? Walking routes?
Sure.
Oh, is that, and then again, that was something we were working with Sarah on, and Bruce and I were kind of the contact from the sort of taking lead from this group on that, along with Sue, who has left us and who was very helpful. And but here we are. We did a write-up, sort of an outline of how this was going to unfold, and presented it to the group well before COVID. So I have that outline, and I'll just take a look. Just under the considerations that we were putting forth under this project, it was route description should be easy to follow with distance references. Routes should be easy to access with parking availability if possible. Most routes should be family friendly, but some challenging walks should be offered. Description should identify accessibility. Key Grimsby historical locations and other points of interest or destination should be identified and included in our walks. Where feasible, routes should be loop walks. And so that was kind of the broad frame where we're going to work under. Just a reminder to all, the background came from some specific requests that Bruce Mannion and I heard from citizens in one of the booths, saying it would be really nice if there was a place they could go to designated walks where they understood the distance, what they might see, planning walks for families. Where can you take the kids to see some historical buildings? Well, the walks would list it's a historical walk, or a downtown walk, or a bayfront walk, or Old Grimsby walk. On it goes. And we probably has about 15 or 20 different suggested routes. So there was no shortage on routes. Some would tie up into the Bruce Trail. And so there would be a whole range of walks. Bruce and I spec'd out one down at the waterfront area that went down into the wetlands, and that was about a 5K loop. So we had a couple of templates, that, and then Sue put one together in around the Nellis area, the museum. And so and then COVID happened. So we just didn't get any further. So some of the questions we would have there is just how to unroll that, how will people access it? We talked about thoughts about how to motivate people, the publicity behind it, how to make it fun, how to a prize for walking 7 of the 10 walks, or whatever. It's kind of endless where you can go with that. But was just and now with the COVID, and it really links back to what you said earlier, Sarah, that people have been out walking. How can we motivate it? Well, if we had a bunch of interesting, fun, challenging, informative, on it goes types of walks that people could tick the box and take their family. Kids love goals and targets. So that's where we are on this thing. It's just that we need somebody to sit down with it at the town and say, oh, when we have these walks defined, what's the best format to roll them out? I said in the beginning, my mind, which is very old school, would have a bunch of pamphlets. Well, that's not what people want today. They want to go online and access it in a different way. So it's knowing what I think there's some of you could certainly tell the range of things that might be possible, but they may not be possible with the town system right now. So we need to know what's feasible and what we can move through. This isn't a high cost thing. It's just really something to roll out in the best way that engages people and engages visitors. If you came into town and you had a few hours and you knew there was this walk or that walk that would happen to show off the things. And by the way, as we move along with the Carolinian theme, that would be another walk with the identified trees along the way that are all of the can't find the word right now, Carolinian Forest. So anyway, it's endless the things we could do with this. It's once again just getting down and getting a format or a process that works with the town's ability to communicate that once we've got it. So that's the background. We won't get into all the different options, right? Bruce, are you still working to work with me on that? And is anyone?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Is anyone else interested once we get some in marking? And we've only got 6 or 7 people now, so we can't all do all things without any pressure. But that's another project that we can move ahead on if we maybe get who to best talk to in the town. Yes, Sarah.
Paul, I have a suggestion, and you can decide if you like it or don't. Just, we've sort of been talking about this, and I think sometimes throwing out a lot of the walking routes at once might be a bit tricky. What if we pick one route of, like, let's say 5 kilometers and really develop it well and talk about its start point and its end point, pick some points of interest along the way. Maybe we can even do a little bit of talking about it. If you did do one down in the West End waterfront, going by, as you said, Big R Lagoons, and sort of mentioning what that is. And, so we really kind of develop that. And then maybe for 2 solid months, we encourage people to walk that route. And we maybe, call the program Walk This Way, in the fall, and really try and go after it and see if we can get some participation. Maybe there's some way to give the thumbs up you completed it, or enter your name that you completed it, and there's some sort of little jar, just something to see if we can get some traction and see what the outcome is and get some feedback from it. And maybe if we do one of those, it would just sort of give us a sense of where's the real interest. Do they like the guided walk? Do they like the points of interest? Do we get a lot of people? Don't we? Is it families? Is it just as something to kind of really start with, that we could sort of have a start and end date to, and maybe even get some metrics. Like if we, we could do a Let's Trot Grimsby page on it and ask people to comment, where did you see this, or share your photo of this. So there's a bunch of different things you could do to try and engage people. I think of even the goose chase we did, right? That worked well.
Right.
Just an idea to maybe give it a sort of focus that we can really do a particular piece on and get some feedback as well.
Well, I like it, and I see hands up, and I'll just comment. We have the skeleton for the one that you just mentioned down through the bigger lagoons, and it happens to be about a 5K loop going down there. So that's in fact been typed up and put together, but it's we could use that as a basis and then add the information pieces to that, and away we go. So yeah, I like that. Is that basic concept suit others? Just to get one out there for test the waters.
Sounds good.
Okay, Phil, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't know who to address this question to, but maybe it could be to you, Sarah. I saw about a month ago on I believe it was the Town of Grimsby Facebook page, but it could have been Grimsby on the Lake Facebook page, that they were doing a historical walk. And I don't know if anybody else saw it, if they attended it, because I viewed it like, oh, the town's already starting to roll things out, and it was the first I've heard of it. So I don't know if anybody else saw it, or actually anybody went on it, because I'd love to hear some feedback of those who did go and what their feelings were about it.
That is probably the Grimsby Museum's historical walking tours. So they do them, each year. They often do them spring, fall, maybe a few in the summer. And it is it's a little different. You actually pay a fee and you go, and it's a guided tour. So it's the whole time it's a guided tour, actually staffed by someone from the museum, and they speak about it's often about the history of the area for the duration of that. So that probably is what you saw. They do get fairly good feedback. They do small groups.
Yes, they do.
Now with COVID, they have to, but they do get some pretty good feedback, and they're generally well attended.
By the way, on that's another option. We did some of our walks. They were to be self-guided, but once in a while for an event, one of us could lead one of those walks, especially say through the Bruce Trail or somewhere, or get somebody from the Historical Society to lead one, and then they would add another level of information and interest to that particular walk. So it has that ability to do what Phil's talking about. So. Okay, if that's the case and we want to put something together, once again, I guess, is it probably Parks and Rec? Are you the one to start with, and you'd get somebody sitting down with us? Bruce and I.
We have a parks coordinator, parks and open space coordinator, and I probably would push this a little bit her way, and depending on what you do for engagement, even one of our recreation team staff. So we can try to make that connection, and you can decide maybe, but I do think focusing on one and sort of promoting it for a bit of time and just seeing what the traction and the interest and the feedback is might be the best way to go, in my opinion, but up to you guys.
No, that's a one to consider, Bruce, and we'll kick it around, and if we can come up with that one with detail, we'll revisit and see if we can at least get as good a skeleton to start with. Bruce, I see your hand, Bruce Mannion.
Yeah. Sarah, I've just a question about the bridges crossing the 40 Mile Creek. When do they expect to be finished? Like the one at the Gibson Street and then the one down by the lake, is that going to be opened at some point in the near future?
Sure. So I was going to touch on new business, but I can now. We did at 2 council meetings ago get approval to proceed with design work for the bridge down at the 40 Mile Creek. So that's the one at the base of the creek down at the pump house. There was hopes once upon a time of repairing that bridge, but we know that that is not possible. It is a bridge with quite a wide span, and it's also in the NPCA Creek area, of course, so we do need to spend some good time really making sure we design it well and check all the boxes we'll need to check. And actually Marvin's been a tremendous help in getting that work done too, and we'll be helping with that design. So we're just about to enter into that piece to look at what options exist, and then we'll really know what the costing of that will be. We know it's going to be quite expensive because of the span of the bridge. So that's where that one is. It is sort of moving along. And for the Gibson Street, I'll maybe let Marvin give an update on that one.
Yeah, sure. So we've actually just tendered the construction for the replacement of the Gibson Street Bridge. In fact, the kickoff meeting or the pre-construction meeting is scheduled for tomorrow with the contractor. We'll know better tomorrow in the timing. We are hearing, unfortunately, some difficulty in getting materials due to COVID. We're really hoping that we can get that built this year. So that's the goal. But we can report back once we hear from the contractor and his supplier and subcontractors. So, but yeah, we're well underway, and we've retained a contractor, and we just have to get the materials and get it built and get the old one out and the new one in. So
thank you.
That's where we are with that one.
Thank you. I'm going to continue with this segment, and then if there's any more of this and the new business, we can come back to it. But thank you for that update. So the last item we have on this list as a for example is the disc golf. And that's, it just seems that, Anne, that was kind of your baby and initiative, and I sent some of the members support. I must say, when you first mentioned disc golf, I had to go and Google it. I'd never heard of it, so it wasn't on my personal initial radar. But that's why we have a committee to bring ideas, and I certainly, looking it up, there seems to be a pretty good fan base around. But there are some key considerations from a town perspective, and the liability and the public reaction. And those are the things that seem to be starting to spin around at earlier meetings. So then my thought was put that one out there. How do you best address them? What will council need to even give its blessings on something like that? So that's probably the most complex of the projects we're looking at today, in terms of how to move ahead with something that's a little unique like that. So I'm sure you'll have the questions, but any thoughts on that one, Sarah, at least for starters?
Yeah, so one of the things we did say we would do is look at potential locations, and really the best location, really the only suitable location, I think, knowing kind of what sort of space they're looking for, is Centennial Park. So we did go through that exercise, didn't find anything else, but at least we know that is sort of where we need to land. From my perspective, I think the best way to proceed next would be to try and actually, I know somebody who started playing disc golf. So I've actually asked to meet with them tomorrow. And I know, Anne, you have some contacts, and I believe even Jimmy, maybe you've played as well, if I'm not mistaken. But what would be helpful to me, and I think to this committee to move this forward, is if we could, from now until before the next meeting, look at a few examples of parks that might have a bit of similarity to Centennial Park, whether they're municipally owned or not. If they can be municipal, great. If not, we can also look at it, maybe visit one or two of them, a few of us as a group, or at least have some conversations with some people and really start to build a bit of a how does it work, addressing some concerns, and then be able to take that forward as a suggested project to council. And because I do think one piece we'll need to do is do some outreach to the community. We always outreach to the immediate neighbors of parks, but even just broadly, we're looking at bringing this, what do you think? And the more that we can provide some information and some good examples of how it works and all of that, the better the story is for it. So for me, that would be, I would suggest, the next piece. And then if we want to proceed, I do think we would put it forward as an official recommendation and we would ask council to support it. But they're going to have a bunch of questions and it would be better if we have some of those answers. Maybe you guys do. I don't yet. So maybe it's a matter of us just talking. But I do think connecting with a few other similar facilities, as I said, even visiting one or two would really probably just help create that picture of what this is and how it works in the park.
Terrific. Does that work for you, Anne? Okay, you have a question. And
Well, no, but I was going to, in answer to what Sarah was suggesting, I have two really good contacts. One is the president or the executive director of the Ontario Discgolf Association, and another one is Prodigy Golf, which is a company that builds disc golf courses in a lot of the municipalities. They've built them in a lot of towns. It might be hard to get out to actually visit one because there aren't any really in our area. I think that's probably why one here would be so successful and so great. But I know, for example, the president of the Ontario Disc Golf Association, with the original plan that was submitted to town council, he was in on developing that and planning it and making the actual design of the course. If you want, I could probably have him attend one of our meetings, or maybe not take up one of the meetings. Maybe we could set up a committee or whoever's interested sometime between now and the next meeting to just talk, for him to present all that information and all the steps. Would that help?
I think it would. I think it'd be good to have some conversation between now and then. I actually don't think it would hurt to have him or someone like him attend one of our meetings, and maybe there's a few people here that might have a couple questions, especially if it is a recommendation coming from this group. I'm seeing a few potential nods on that, so it might help with some of the discussion. So, you know, and if you could help sort of set up that conversation, and Jimmy, if you have any resources too, I think if we could work towards, you know, just really understanding it well and knowing all of that, and then having that discussion at our committee, I think it would, you know, help, you know, give everybody a sense of how we want to proceed.
Okay, shall I try to set something up between now and September 15th, and then just contact you and we'll email everybody and we'll do it, you know, like a Zoom. You can set it all up like a Zoom meeting like this, right? But just for the disc golf subject.
I think it would work great. Again, I open up, of course, up to everybody. I also see Councillor Richie came on, so he might have a comment on it as well. But I think it would be worthwhile. I think it might just have some good conversation and give us sort of some of the answers that we might want to have if we are going out into the community and talking about what it is.
Well, he's worked with a lot of other cities and municipalities in doing the design, so he can be the best person to provide the information. Okay, I'll work
sounds
on
like
it.
if you can do that, then that's good for the next meeting. We'll all learn something. I see some hands waving. I'll get to you guys. The other thing I will ask is, I know, Anne, that you brought it to the group, but is there anyone else? Do you need a sounding board in the group, or have you had anybody else from our committee working with you on this to date?
It's just been presenting the information, and I think what we need to have is a consensus that this committee, this Active Grimsby committee, would like to see us moving forward with it.
So probably after our
really
presentation.
Committee, no.
So if we
But
have
I know
a
Jimmy and Phil have both expressed strong
Yeah.
support for it.
No, that's right. And it'd be a shame to have you going off on a tangent and then not have support for that. So we should probably glean that maybe after we've had a presentation and we know what we're talking about. So that would suit me. Everybody okay with that? Bruce Mannion, I see your hand flailing away there. What's up?
Before I even heard of disc golf, or just after I heard about disc golf, I had never seen it before or never heard of it before. And then since I've been on my travels and hiking and cycling and stuff like that, I ran into 3 disc golf courses. One's in St. Catharines by Queenston near St. Paul's.
Yeah.
One's in Christie Conservation Area, and I'm not sure where the other one was. But there, I saw it being used once. The one that I was walking by, and and it was being used, so I do have an idea of what's involved in it now. So there is at least one that's not too far away in St. Catharines, if somebody wanted to go see where it is.
Yeah, this one in St. Catharines it's a good disc golf course, but it's got a lot of problems in that neighborhood.
That's where I play all the
There's a
time.
lot of social problems in that area.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the best example.
Needles. You gotta watch out for the needles.
It's called Centennial Gardens. If anybody wants to look it up, it's a really good course. And
Yeah, my husband goes there all the time, but it's
yeah, social problems notwithstanding, like if anybody ever wants to go, like I'll happily like pick you up, bring you there, like show you the deal. You don't have to play the whole course. We can play 2 holes even just to get the feel for it and see what it's like.
Thank you.
Great.
Any more questions on
Sorry.
disc golf? Yes,
What was
Sarah?
Centennial Gardens? Is that what you said, Jimmy? Thank you.
Centennial Gardens.
Yeah, if I can, Chair,
Yes.
through you. Yeah, I think it's great to have the president of Disc Golf come to next meeting or in the very future. One of the things that I would like to suggest is, if we can get a move on this, and if we get the president to attend a Zoom meeting, then maybe we can look at them also to do a delegation for council. If the councilors do have questions, that might be the best person to have present so they can ask questions directly to the president of the association, as that individual would be best suited to answer their questions. And also, I don't expect like a huge cost for it, but it also would allow us, if we can move on this a little bit quicker, if possible, that if also with having the president there, we might be able to include it into budget discussions, which I would expect to start around November, December for next year. So we don't have to be completely done, but we could have the potential, put it into budget discussions so that we can, that would ultimately give council would have approval on that, and they would either support us or not. And we would know probably pretty quickly if we should be moving forward for design and so forth. So just some thoughts out there.
Great.
I think that, again, the first step is having the person come and discuss the situation with us, so we're well aware of and create a plan on how to move forward. But those are just some of the thoughts that moving forward that I would look at for us to get this done successfully.
Well, that makes his presentation all the more important, and yeah.
Okay, no, did you want it for the next meeting, or do you want to try and do it sometime before then so that it doesn't take up our whole next meeting?
So one of the things that, if the individual was prepared to come to council for delegation in the future, they have, I believe it's a 10-minute time limit. So, obviously for us would be a lot more informal. So I'm okay with whenever, I would think the sooner the better. So maybe by the next meeting, if they can come and speak to us, we do have this advantage with Zoom meetings and so forth. So I think if we could have them come and speak to us by the next meeting, I think it would make a big difference for us.
All right, that's good for me. Sarah, that's okay for you and Paul?
Yes.
Have it at the next meeting? Okay.
I think it's great.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, Mark has something to say.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to suggest you may want to form that into a motion and have the committee vote on that. I have some suggested wording here, if you like, that the committee invite the chair of Disc Golf. Was it Ontario or Canada?
Ontario Disc Golf.
Ontario Disc Golf to attend a future meeting to present to the committee and answer any questions members may have.
Now, from a chair end, what am I to do with that in terms of turning it into a resolution?
So Paul, you would need a mover and a seconder on that?
Great. Now, I have resolutions that were sent to me, and one of them, the last one that I was going to move through, is just one moment. Yes. Resolved that the committee discuss the issue regarding the location of setting up disc golf, and then I can add some words if that particular resolution modified can do the job for you folks. Okay. That the committee. Okay. So I got to write this down, right? Because I don't have any other way of.
And through you, Chair, was it the chair of Disc Golf Ontario or was it president?
Anne?
You're
muted,
muted,
Ann.
Ann.
Is it, are we talking, you're on mute. She won't hear me tell her she's on mute.
The Ontario Disc Sport Association, OD. But it's, I'll have to look it up. Hold on. I think I have it here. ODSA, Ontario Disc Sport Association.
Is it the chair or president that we're going to speak to?
He's the executive director.
Executive director.
His name is Chris Oslins, ChrisOzolins. And Chris was the one who worked with Andrew Leland, who did that original proposal a couple of years ago. He'd be willing to, he said he's willing to come and talk to us, for sure. Or Zoom with us. That's right, Disc Sport Association.
Hope I can read my own writing here.
You know where else there's a really good new disc golf course is in Niagara Falls and Fireman's Park.
I did hear about that.
Probably the other one I saw.
Okay, that's the committee. When I read this out, if I miss any words, please remind me and we'll clean it up. But I think I've got this down on my resolution. Thank you very much. With that said, I'm going to ask us to move and second all the resolutions related to this particular part of the agenda, so we get that done. Okay. First one is resolved that the staff reviewed and relayed the procedural process for active Grimsby initiatives. Can I have a mover and second? Because that's been included in what we've talked about in this part of the agenda. Thank you, Dave. And a second, Bruce M. Thank you. The next one is received that the committee discussed the Trails Master Plan. Move and second, Bruce. And Kevin. No, that's, oh, Philip. Thanks, Phil. Next one, resolved that the committee received the walking routes update for information. I need a mover. Jimmy, thank you. And a seconder, Bruce Mannion, thank you. I feel like I should apologize for all this detail, but it's procedure. Resolved that the committee received the bike-friendly designation for information. Who's going to move that one? Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And a seconder. Thank you, Ann. And finally, received that the committee discussed the issue regarding the location of setting up disc golf. Second, that this committee invite the executive director of Ontario Disc Sports Association to attend a future meeting, excuse me, to present to the committee and answer any questions members may have. Is that got the right wording for you, Ann?
That's good.
Thank you, and you're going to move it, Ann. And a seconder. Thank you, Jimmy. Great. Okay, I can let go of that now. We move to new business. Is there any new business or any question follow-up?
Just, sorry, Paul, to interrupt you, but You got to move her and second her, but I think you might also have to call a vote on each one, just for
Thank you.
procedural.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
No problem.
Can I do all at once, or do we need to do them one at a time? I guess we got to do them one at a time. Well, let's go back to the first. Everybody all agreed about the procedural process that we were presented. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Resolved that the committee discuss the Trails Master Plan. All in favor? Thank you. Resolved that the committee received the walking routes update for information. Nobody opposed, that's great. Resolved that the committee received the bike-friendly designation information. My goodness. And finally, the disc golf resolution. And we all won't read the words, we all in favor? Thank you. Next item is new business. Is there anything else to be brought on new business? I think we were looking, we had some discussion about the bike routes in town, and I think everything, we know where we're going on that. Jimmy?
Yeah, I got something that probably might be directed toward Public Works. A very short anecdote. There was a retired couple pushing one of their parents in a wheelchair just in downtown Grimsby at the corner of Ontario and Maine, and they couldn't get up the what do you call it, like the graded part of the sidewalk that joins with the asphalt. So there was quite a substantial hole in there, and I don't really know like how to, what the process is to report these things, or whether like putting them through with the committee carries any more weight, or like how we should go about that, or like, even if we as a committee can be like aware of that and, submitting maintenance / accessibility things as part of like our regular monthly meetings or something like that. It'd be great if we could like be the eyes for people as we are largely in and about the community with attention to these sorts of things.
Accessibility.
Yeah. So how did
I can take a stab at answering that if you want, Paul.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Jimmy. And as far as do you need to do anything special with it? If you could provide the location, that would be something we could have our team look at, right away, because that's a very important item. The other thing is the town does an annual review of all of the sidewalks. So this year we're actually trying a little bit different method. We're going out with a golf cart and a tablet or handheld device, and we're going to be recording. The primary focus is for like trips, make sure there's no trips for individuals to trip on and fall. But as part of that, we could include, if it's not already done, a review of any locations where we feel or are obviously unsafe in terms of ramps for accessibility concerns. So certainly through you or your group, I don't think it has to be anything formal. We would just go take a look at it. If it's something significant, that we may have to bring forward in a future budget, but we do budget annually for sidewalk improvements. And yeah, I think if it's, a one here or there, I don't see why we can't, consider, incorporating that into that contract.
Well, that's great. Is there like a form or something? Like, what's the submission mechanism? There's
an online tool that you can use, and I see Sarah's hands up too, so maybe I'll jump to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I can answer it just because we've been doing some work on it, Marvin, if it's helpful. But if I do think, depending on what it is often great to submit report an issue, because it's the fastest way to get it to the right set of hands. Depending upon the matter, you may not want to wait what might be 3 weeks, right, before it can come up after a month, and it could always be followed up upon at this meeting. So just maybe for everybody's benefit, if you do go to our website, in the top right-hand corner, there's an I want to button. And if you click on it, there's report an issue. There's quite a lengthy list of reported issue pieces that you can submit. But the benefit to that too is you can submit the details of what it is. You can actually even attach a photo, you can provide location detail, and that gets fed to the right staff right away. So it sometimes is the best way to make sure that information gets communicated. As I said, you could always bring it, raise it again at the meeting or touch point with one of us to make sure it's been addressed, but it does allow you to share a little bit more detail at that spot. So, if you guys are out walking and you see these types of things, I would, Marvin, if you would agree, I would suggest using that if you can. It's just the quickest way to get it in front of somebody.
That's perfect. Thanks, Sarah.
If it's a safety concern, right?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Great. Everybody else, are we okay? I feel a lot more informed today than other times. So thank you to all who input into this. Everybody else feel as good to me? Good.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I don't have to call for a motion to adjourn, just adjourn the meeting, correct? Yes, Sarah.
Sorry, can I?
No, not at all.
I just wanted to give a few quick little updates, if I may. The first is, since we last met, I did want to share the exciting announcement that we are expanding the Peach King Center. And while we tend to talk in this group about outdoor spaces, part of this expansion is going to include a walking track, which is very, very exciting. It was the #2 item that was on our master plan. So we know there's a huge demand for it from a wide variety of residents, and we're super excited to bring forward that work. The expansion will also include a gymnasium, multi-purpose rooms, some improvements in some of the lobby and arena spaces, improving accessibility, a wide variety of things. And I'd be happy to share some of those details with you at a later time. But I thought the walking track in particular, as an active transportation group or active Grimsby group, I thought that would be of interest, and I just wanted to share it in case you weren't aware of it. We are also advancing work on pickleball courts. We're now actually focusing our efforts more over by Mayfair Park, which is over by the large dog park, the Steve McDonald Dog Park. Will be quite a facility that we know is also in high demand. So happy to kind of keep you in the loop with that as we move that along too, but we're really excited to bring that forward. And then just lastly, our Casablanca waterfront project as well. We are just finalizing some concept plans, and that will be out to the community shortly for some feedback. And I will make sure that it gets to each of you as well to make sure that you do give some feedback, because there is a large walking and active component there too. So we do want to make sure you all have a chance to weigh in on that. And there might even be an opportunity, just depending upon timing, to discuss it at this meeting as well, if that's desirable.
Terrific. Wow, good news. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, Bruce Mackenzie.
Forget to unmute, Bruce.
Unmute. How do you tell somebody to unmute? What's the
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go
Thanks,
ahead,
Chair
Bruce.
Paul.
Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up if I could, and this it might be premature, on a report. I think Brandon Wortman was speaking about the communicating with the region of Niagara by what complete roads or complete streets meant for the upcoming improvements to Regional Road 81 or Main Street through town, because in our discussion last, it was noted that there are different levels of complete streets as defined by the region. And I think we had some questions as to whether bike lanes and such were to be included in the plans. And I think Public Works Grimsby was going to communicate with Public Works Niagara to try to get some answers for us in that. So if we have those answers tonight, fine. If not, I'd just like to put out a reminder for that that we are waiting for that feedback. Thank you, Chair Paul.
Right. I don't have an answer on how we were going to move ahead on that. So how do we get? Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, I can chime in a little bit, Bruce. Due to, I don't know if it's due to COVID or vacation or summer, whatever it is, but we really haven't heard any updates since our last meeting from the region. I think the way it was left at the last meeting was the region was planning to move forward with the reconstruction of Main Street west of Casablanca. We've reached out, the town have reached out to the region at that time and identified and made clear, you know, our interest in making it, you know, bike friendly, along with some other concerns and interests that we had. So they did mention or confirm that, you know, they did receive our comments. And the last update I had is it was work in progress, and we would at some point when the time was right get the preliminary design that we could look at. But I suspect they're still working away on it, and it's still kind of in its infancy. So we're definitely going to keep on that because yeah, it's important initiative for everyone. So hopefully that helps, Bruce.
Through you, Chair Paul. Yes, Marvin, that I appreciate that, and I hope you can keep up the pressure. My fear is that by the time we may get word of the preliminary design, it may come with a subtext saying too late to change. I'm hoping that's not the case. But so thank you for your efforts in this regard, and I look forward to further reports or news.
If I may also add in there, Bruce, through you, Chair Paul, Regional Councillor Wayne Furtick also sits on the Transportation Committee for the region. And we had him attend one of our meetings in the past. And he did indicate that it was his objective to put bike lanes in on Regional Road 81. When they did the reconstruction, he mentioned it would be roughly about 10 different phases to get that done. If I could suggest, or if not, actually, so we get updates from the regional councillor, and if I could get an email for a reminder, or even if you just want to email regional councillor Furtick himself, I'm sure that he'd be more than happy to assist and let us know if he has any updates, and also could apply a little bit of pressure at that regional level for us.
I'd be happy to drop him a line, and then the reply I can forward to Chair Paul and staff, so it can be circulated.
Yeah, and I also believe Councillor Reg Frake also sits on that committee as well. So
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any more questions, input? Can I adjourn the meeting? 1, 2, 3. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank
Paul.
you.
Thanks.
See you later, everybody.
Good enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.